Hey everyone, it's Lindsay and welcome to the Dose of Bliss show. If you're new here, don't forget to click the subscribe button. Today I have a very special guest. I have Carol Winner, the founder of GiveSpace. So before we get started, can you let everyone know what GiveSpace is?
Yes, GiveSpace is a beautiful peach symbol and message, give space, to define your personal space.
Mm-hmm.
And this tells others, maybe right now I need a little bit of an extended personal space boundary for healing, or in this new day, COVID, of course, to protect myself. And also I might have sensory sensitivities to touch or to germs. And so it's just a nice way to say, please give me a little bit of space.
Yeah, I think that's really important to know. I personally, even before COVID hit, I'm not the type of person who I like to be touched, but not until I'm comfortable with you. And
Right.
so I noticed that in others. So I ask people, oh, is it okay to hug you? Because I understand sometimes I just don't want to be hugged, or and it has nothing to do with anything, and other people don't get it.
Well,
And
that's perfect. That's
so
perfect.
and so when the virus happened, because I'm also like that when people are sick, I'm like, don't go near me. I was like, wow, finally people are understanding my language. So I wish I knew that this was around. So how did you get into doing this?
Well, I think like all of us, our education, our family life, it kind of all converges, and comes together. And um, my father died suddenly when I was 18.
I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. And my mother, just before, was diagnosed with colon cancer. And so then she had a recurrence after. And through her care and recovery, she developed sensitivity to germs and viruses and became immunocompromised.
Mm-hmm.
And so this went on for many, many years, for about 40 years. And in the meantime, I was studying health, public health, and I was working with NIH and CDC. And I think that curiosity came out of losing my dad and my mom getting sick, and this all came together. And, my mother loved people, and she loved to play bridge and go to church and do her thing, and people would stop by all the time, and we'd get her out of the hospital and she would get sick again when people would get too close and engage. And it was hard for her to tell people not to touch her.
Mm-hmm.
And then I spent the night with a friend who had a mastectomy, woke up the next morning, walking the halls, somebody recognized her and picked her up off the floor and bear hugged her.
Oh, yeah.
And so I thought, I really, really need to do something about this. And I was working on actually affordable care, and I finished that out and started GiveSpace with the help of my mom. She got involved with what to call it, what the symbol should look like, and so she just loved it.
That's absolutely amazing how you can take a hard part of your life, which I can't even imagine when you're going through all that, and think of how can I use this to serve me and other people. How did you even come to the conclusion to take that, to make, where did that mindset come from?
Yeah, I think it was just, I'm a fixer. I like to look at things and see how we can improve on things. And I just thought there's got to be a solution to this. And so many people like yourself, it can be as simple as, please don't touch me unless you ask me. Please don't come into my personal space unless you ask me. And then I speak to so many people who say, oh, I'm just such a hugger. I'm going in for that hug. I'm a big hugger too. And it's just a reminder, a kind reminder that, hey, maybe not right now. I love you, but today's not the day.
Yeah, everyone has different languages, or you might not know why they don't want to hug. It might be their personal boundary, or they could be immune compromised and really, or have an injury and can't be touched at that time. So we don't want to just assume.
Right.
And
I think it's particularly hard for men with women.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have a peach on, pardon me, if they have a peach on, it's kind of a license that, to step back and not offend, because they don't know what to do sometimes. And then if the peach isn't there, like one of my customers used the vest in her post-mastectomy recovery. And when she was wearing the vest, the grandchildren knew not to hug her that day.
Mm-hmm.
When she didn't have the vest on, it was okay to hug grandmommy, So that's how things, it can help communicate without having to have a conversation about it all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there needs to be a communication. When you were experiencing this with like your mom and people you knew, what did you notice about the communication, like boundaries between people? Because people who are huggers, you know, if they don't know, they're
Yeah.
like, why don't you want to hug me? They almost get offended. It's kind of almost like this is a communication thing that we didn't realize was going on.
Um, well, again, I think people will tell you that they want the personal space, but they don't want to offend anyone.
Hmm.
They don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And so the nice thing about it was to be able to create something that can quickly communicate. And it started for medical recovery, oh, for mastectomies or surgeries or and then you know, like a burn units and things like that. Cystic fibrosis, beautiful for cystic fibrosis because of course they cannot have people engage with them, yet they're very young and active people. Um, but then it evolved. So I started hearing from the autism community and people with PTSD. And they felt like, well, you know, I could put a sticker on the back of my child's shirt and it just tells people at the daycare or wherever the child is at the school not to physically engage with my child because it causes anxiety.
Hmm.
So it really expanded. And then I started thinking more about children and leaving them out of the conversation. And I didn't want to do that. So um, I wrote a book, What Do I Do With My Hugs? And it's a beautiful story about Lily, a little girl who loves her Mimi's hugs. And she goes to her Mimi's and visits. And one day she goes and Mimi doesn't hug her.
Hmm.
And so how that makes her feel, did I do something wrong? Did I stay too, you know, did I leave my toys around? What did I do wrong? And then she and Mimi work it out and show their love in new ways.
Hmm.
And that's what's happening with COVID.
Hmm.
A lot of parents are using it for homeschooling. Start the conversation, you know, about it's okay to define your personal space. And actually defining your personal space as a child protects you as an adult.
Hmm.
So it's so important because they don't, you know, it takes the fear out of it too.
Hmm. It's really important. That's why I wanted to ask you about that. A lot of people don't learn about defining personal space. As me, who's someone who's a little bit slower with it, personal space, and seeing other people who aren't, I've always had that boundary of not wanting to offend a person. I always tell them, but it's, you know, sometimes people get their feelings hurt, and it's like, you know, I have that understanding of others. So it's so nice to see that there's something out there and that people are learning. And through COVID, they're learning even more. So through this process of creating this company, what is the biggest life lesson you learned?
Wow, biggest life lesson. I think that it's important for me to always remember, um, keep in mind that the significance of personal space and what it means to each different individual. And you just brought that up. And
Mhm.
that's something that it varies, you know. Um, one touching story was early on, a young child who even wore a helmet from seizures, went to church every Sunday, very religious family here in Kansas, and um, came in with their mother for an appointment. And I let him pick out what he wanted to wear. And he wanted a pin. And so he wore them to church. And after he got in the truck, his mom wrote me, she said, he hopped in and said, Mom, it really worked. And I thought, this child, how long has this child gone to church and worried about people touching him? Because he was also immunocompromised severely, and you know, where the peace offering and things like that. Can you imagine even how he felt? Because he's a child and
Yeah.
someone else. So I try to, when I talk to folks, I really try to understand whether it's about them, whether it's about, are they a caregiver? A lot of people caregiving, and that's why some of my clothes are antimicrobial. If you hug someone, you can share germs,
Hmm.
and then they go home, and you know, you see them in the grocery store. Oh, you know, how's Dave or whatever, and then give them my love, and then Dave's wife goes home and shares the germs. So every situation is important, and to listen. I really felt like it was important for me to listen and involve people with sensitivities in the development of all of the products.
Hmm. Yeah, you can tell. I can feel your energy. You're just a very, I feel so happy talking to you. You can just tell you're a very loving, giving person. Like the healing within you just like transcends.
Thank you. I'd love to give you a hug someday.
Well,
But I'll
virtual.
ask first, right?
Yeah, I'm usually okay with hugs. I just find it funny because my friend's brother, side story, is not, but he never said it, and I could tell. So I'd be like, "Can I hug you?" And sometimes he'd be like,
Yeah.
"No." And my friends would laugh, being like, "How do you know this about my brother?" And I'm like, "Because I'm a person that like sometimes I don't want people in my space, so I can recognize that in someone else, and like." And because I ask that, sometimes he'll just hug me and I'll be like, "Oh, wow, like this is great. Like, you feel good today."
And the word sometimes is really important because there are times in our lives where we all need an extended personal space boundary,
Hmm.
right? Because when we're stressed, that's when we need more space.
Hmm.
Or if we're pregnant, there's a very protective way that we become and protecting the baby. So there are different times in our lives. I think for me, when my mom passed, I had a lot of strangers hugging me, and that was terribly uncomfortable for me, even though I'm a big hugger.
Yeah.
But I was grieving. And so that gets back to sometimes it's okay and sometimes it's not okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think those conversations need to be had. I think
Yes.
a lot of people watching this video are going to be like, wow, I never realized I felt this way too. I just thought I had to hug. I know when I was little, I always just thought I had to hug someone, even though I didn't really want to. I would usually just hide behind my parents, but I wouldn't want to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
and you had good parents to let you do that. I think, you still see parents who say, oh, hey, go hug so-and-so, and it's not a great thing to do, even though you're doing it to teach them to be kind. It can cause anxiety for that
yeah,
child.
I remember feeling, and that's probably why I'm so like that too. You're feeling that anxiety. And, it was more that I just wanted to get to know a person before I felt comfortable hugging them, and that was in my mind. I just wanted to play with them and talk to them and like warm up to them. And then I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like probably when they left, I'd be like, okay, now here's your hug. Not like hug hello.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's,
you need a peach. You need a peach.
I know I'm sitting here thinking like I need one of these. I'll have to reach out to you after this because this is like perfect for me. This is why you're here. Like
Yeah.
my show, we always talk about synchronicities that nothing doesn't happen on accident. If you're hearing a message or if you're connecting with a person, that it's for a reason.
Well, I love your show. I was listening to the one about panic attacks. So,
Oh, thank you.
these kinds of things where people really struggle and they think they're the only person struggling with something like this. And to hear someone give tips on how to overcome it. And that's the thing, it's easy for us as health educators to say, okay, you gained COVID-8 or COVID-10, okay, you need to exercise and you need to eat better and you need to. And I think your personal space it needs protection from yourself as well. To
Yeah.
not allow yourself to get too caught up in, in I need to accomplish these things right now, and because you're going to fail, right?
I know. No,
Tomorrow I'm going to change my diet and exercise and do all these things. It's just setting yourself up.
yeah,
So
it's the big thing. We don't give ourselves our own personal boundaries, and that's the number one.
it is the number one. And I think with COVID, a lot of it's too, in listening is um, protecting your personal space from toxicity,
Mm-hmm.
because you're trying to adjust and deal with your own stressors related to having to stay home and to social distance and to do these things and to make sense. That's another thing I do is I write a lot with blogs and as you've seen with magazines and things, just taking the simplest things and saying, should I hang my coat at the door? Or, am I going to carry it in the house on my shoes? And, should I get the vaccine? Things like that, because there's so much information out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have other people who are not intentionally, but bringing their stress into your life, defining that boundary is really important for you to get through this
Mm-hmm.
and say, that's a little too toxic for me. And that's okay. That's okay to say to be able to, it's important to protect yourself, your family, things that are important to you.
Mm-hmm.
but I've seen so much empathy and so much kindness and things that we can do to show our love in other ways that I hope will continue beyond COVID, right?
Me too. I see that. Last thing I want to say, we only have a little bit left, and I'll have to ask you your last thing. But yeah, it's who would have ever known you're walking down the street and someone goes the other way, that's a sign of respect.
Yeah.
I'll be like, thank you. Wow, this person literally like walked so far out of the way from me just so I could like walk down the sidewalk. That's so thoughtful. And I wish,
I had two customers who do daily walk on the beach in California early on in COVID. They both got t-shirts, GiveSpace, and they said, it worked. People moved off the path. And I said, oh, there you go,
you just gotta let people know.
They're older and they're very concerned about their health. But I have customers, like I said, a young child, I have customers of all ages, and it warms my heart that people can get the space that they need. And it also helps other people think, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't just go in for that hug.
It just helps us all be better people together.
Yeah, there you go.
So where can everybody find you?
I'm at givespacepeach.com.
That is me. And do you have any social media handles?
Oh yes, of course. We're on Facebook, GiveSpace Peach. We're on Twitter, GiveSpace, and Instagram, GiveSpace. And of course, LinkedIn.
I will link all of that below if you want to find out more information about GiveSpace. It's all there for you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything you wanted to add before we head out? 6 feet, wear a mask. We've got a long way to go, but we're getting there. We're getting there together. And give space and be kind, right? Yes. Thank you so much for coming to the show, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye. Yeah, see you next time. Bye, Lindsay.